felt it before. Maybe you call it something else. Flow state, being in the zone. Moments when everything aligned and you moved with a power that felt bigger than you. Words came out of your mouth you didn't plan. Ideas arrived fully formed. Your body knew what to do before your mind caught up, and then it left. You tried to get it back. Couldn't. You tried to figure out what you did to make it happen. Still couldn't. And so you filed it away as luck, or coincidence, or some random gift that visits when it wants to. That power has a name, what you touched in those moments. The traditions that spent millennia mapping human potential called it something specific. God energy, literal truth, actual force, the creative power that brings worlds into being, the same force that animates galaxies and grows forests and beats your heart 60 to 100 times per minute without you lifting a finger. And what changes everything, that force is what you already are. You don't need to acquire it. You don't need to earn it. You need to stop doing whatever blocks it. Tonight, we're going all the way into this. I'm going to walk you through exactly what this energy is according to the people who dedicated their lives to understanding it. I'm going to show you why you've lost access to your own power, the specific mechanisms that create the blockage. And then I'm going to guide you through precise methods for restoring that connection. Practical stuff you can use tonight. There's a full practice sequence toward the end that brings everything together, so stay with us. I'll use English for these concepts. I'll reference what the traditions originally called things when it helps, but the goal is transmission, clarity, understanding. The depth comes through precision of explanation. What we're actually talking about here, God energy is the creative power of presence itself, the force that makes anything appear at all. When the Kashmir Shaivism masters wrote about this, they described reality as a single living presence constantly bringing forth the entire universe from itself. Kashamaraja's heart of recognition puts it directly in the first sutra. Presence, by its own free will, causes the universe to appear. Presence creates while being the creation. The creator and the created share the same substance. Think about what that means for you. If presence is doing all the creating, and you are presence appearing as a specific form, then the creative power of the entire universe exists right where you are. You can't be separate from it. A sunbeam can't be separate from the sun that produces it. The beam is the sun, extended. You are God energy extended into a particular pattern. The Tamil Siddha tradition understood this through direct practice. Thirumular's Tirumantaram, 3,000 verses covering the complete science of transformation, describes the human body as a temple where the divine literally lives. The same power that creates and maintains the cosmos is present in your form, available for deliberate direction. What makes humans distinct is the capacity to recognize this and work with it intentionally. Now, if this power is already what you are, why don't you feel it? Why does accessing it feel like luck rather than choice? Why do those moments of flow and alignment come randomly instead of on demand? This is where it gets practical. Really understand this. The power gets blocked by restriction. That's the mechanism. Presence tightens around certain experiences, certain identities, certain beliefs, and each tightening restricts the flow, like a wide river narrowing through a canyon. Same water, less movement, more turbulence where the narrowing happens. The Kemetic initiates in the temples along the Nile understood this as the relationship between expansion and restriction. Their word for cosmic order, what they called Ma'at, described the natural state when nothing interferes with the flow of creative intelligence. Disorder arose when restrictions disrupted the natural current. The priest initiate's work was learning to release those restrictions, first in themselves, then in service to others. To understand restriction, feel your body right now as you're listening. Notice your shoulders. Notice your jaw. Notice your belly. Unless you're deeply relaxed, there's tension somewhere. That tension is restriction at the physical level, but restriction happens at every level of your being: physical, energetic, mental, emotional. Each layer can tighten independently, and when they do, the free flow of creative energy gets restricted. Mental restriction looks like fixed beliefs, certainty that things have to be a particular way. I'm not creative. I can't do that. That's impossible for someone like me. Each of these is presence narrowing itself, limiting what it will allow. Emotional restriction looks like stored patterns. Fear that got stuck, grief that never moved through, anger that calcified into resentment. These are active restrictions in your system, places where energy can't flow freely. Energetic restriction shows up as chronic tension, depleted vitality, that sense of being dimmer than you know you could be. The Tamil Siddhars described this as blockages in the subtle channels, places where life force gets stuck instead of circulating freely. Bogger, one of the 18 Siddhars who allegedly traveled between Tamil Nadu and China, taught that these blockages accumulate over time like sediment in pipes. Each unprocessed experience leaves residue. Eventually, the pipes barely flow at all. What makes this relevant to God energy specifically? The creative power is infinite at its source, but what can move through your system depends on how open the pathways are. It's like electricity through a wire. The power station generates enormous voltage, but if the wire to your house is corroded, damaged, too narrow, you get a fraction of what's available, and you think there's scarcity, when actually the power is limitless. The limitation lives in the delivery system. Further into what this energy actually is, understanding this changes how you work with it. In the Kashmir Shaivism tradition, they described presence as having 5 fundamental activities. 5 things it's always doing simultaneously: creation, bringing new forms into existence; maintenance, sustaining what has appeared; dissolution, allowing forms to end when their time completes; concealment, hiding its own nature so the play of existence can happen; and revelation, pulling back the veil so recognition can occur. These 5 activities happen in you constantly. Right now, thoughts are being created, maintained for a moment, then dissolving. Sensations appear, persist, fade. Even your sense of being a separate person is being actively created and maintained moment to moment, concealing what you actually are so you can have this particular experience. God energy is all 5 of these powers together. When you access it, you gain natural cooperation with all 5 movements of reality. You can create when creation is needed, sustain when sustaining serves, release when it's time to let go. The wisdom to know which is which comes naturally because you're aligned with the intelligence doing all of it. U.T. Paladeva, who wrote the foundational texts on this philosophy, described the experience as cooperation with your own deepest nature. When you're restricted, you fight reality. You try to create when it's time to dissolve. You try to maintain what needs to end. You're out of sync with the fundamental movements of existence. When you open, you naturally participate in what's already happening. Effort reduces, results increase. You stop fighting the current. The Tamil Siddhars approached the same understanding through the body directly. For them, God energy was something you could feel, cultivate, direct. They developed precise techniques for opening the channels where this energy flows, clearing the blockages that restrict it, and eventually directing it deliberately for specific purposes: healing, creativity, perception beyond ordinary limits. Agastya, traditionally considered the founder who brought these teachings south, taught that the body contains the same structure as the cosmos. Every cosmic principle has its correlate in your physical form. So working with the body directly is working with universal forces through their most accessible point: your own nervous system, your own breath, your own attention. The Kemetic understanding mapped this through what they called Ka, the vital force or double that animates the physical form. Ka was the life force itself expressing through you. The initiates in the Per Ankh, the house of life where priests trained in all sciences, learned to work with Ka directly, to strengthen it through specific methods, to direct it through trained attention. What they called Heka, usually translated as magic, was precisely this: the science of activating and directing vital force with intention. You see what I'm saying? Across these traditions, Kashmir, Tamil Nadu, the Nile Valley, the same understanding appears. There's a creative power that is what you are. It flows naturally when nothing obstructs it. Obstructions create the experience of being cut off from your own source, and specific methods can clear those obstructions, restoring access to what was never actually lost. Further into how the blockages form, because understanding this precisely is what makes the methods work. Every experience you have makes an impression. This is observable. Something happens, and it leaves a trace in your system. If you process the experience completely, feel it fully, understand it clearly, allow it to move through, the trace is light, like drawing on water, appears, then gone. But when you resist an experience, suppress it, push it away before it completes, the trace becomes heavier. It stays, and each heavy trace adds to the accumulated restriction in your system. Over time, you're carrying dozens, hundreds, thousands of incomplete experiences, each one a small tightening. Together, they create the sensation of being dense, heavy, limited. The Vajrayana tradition understood this with extreme precision. They described mental impressions, what they called habitual patterns, as seeds stored in presence. Some seeds are dormant, waiting for conditions to sprout. Some are actively growing, shaping your current experience. Some are creating your future before you get there. Naropa, one of the great masters of this lineage, taught that these accumulated patterns control responses completely. You think you're making choices. Actually, the patterns are making choices through you. You think you're responding to what's happening now. Actually, you're reacting from what happened before. The present moment barely reaches you through all the accumulated interference. This is why those moments of flow feel so different. In flow, the patterns temporarily quiet. The interference drops. And for those moments, you're actually here, actually responding to what's actually happening, actually connected to the creative power that's always available. It feels like grace because the usual static cleared, and you finally receive the signal that's been broadcasting all along. Think about what I just said. Don't let it fly over your head. The power is always broadcasting. You're always connected to it because you are it. What changes is interference. When interference is high, you feel cut off. When interference drops, you feel plugged in. The connection stayed the same. The static changed. This reframes the entire project. And you're clearing what obscures something you already have. You're removing interference, opening pathways, releasing density. Those are fundamentally different orientations than trying to acquire something you lack. And the methods that work for one don't work for the other. Methods aimed at acquisition tend to add more techniques, more effort, more spiritual accomplishments to stack up. The methods aimed at clearing tend to subtract. They release what's accumulated. They dissolve what's tightened. They create openness where there was density. And through that openness, what was always present becomes apparent. We've covered what God energy actually is, how blockages form, why you felt cut off from your own power. Now we're getting into the practical methods, the how of restoring access. If you're still with us, if this is making sense or creating useful questions, say so in the comments. There are multiple levels of approach for working with God energy. I'm going to take you through them in order, from foundational to advanced. The foundational methods prepare your system. The intermediate methods clear specific blockages. The advanced approach is seeing what you are, which actually makes the whole thing unnecessary because you see the truth directly. But preparation helps that seeing stabilize. Foundational method 1, physical opening. The body holds restriction physically. Tension patterns that developed over years, sometimes decades. Each pattern restricts energy flow through that area. And you've adapted to the restriction so completely you don't notice it anymore. The first method is simple. Daily, spend 10 to 15 minutes deliberately releasing held tension. Start standing. Feet wider than hips. Allow your body to move in any way it wants to move. Unstructured motion that follows impulse. Your system knows where it's stuck. When you give it permission to move freely, it will start working on those areas automatically. You might find yourself shaking your shoulders, rolling your neck, bending and twisting in ways that don't look like anything recognizable. That's correct. Your body is unwinding itself. The Tamil Siddhars used movement techniques they called specific body positions, holding shapes that opened particular channels, combined with breathing that moved energy through those channels. But before the precise work, there was always the preliminary, simply letting the body move, shake off accumulated density, prepare the vessel for subtler work. If you do this consistently for 30 days, you'll notice something. Your baseline changes. You carry less tension without trying. Energy flows more freely through your day. And the subtler methods become more effective because the gross level blockages aren't absorbing all the attention. Foundational method 2, breath expansion. The majority of people breathe in a restricted pattern, shallow, chest only, truncated exhales. This pattern both reflects restriction and reinforces it. Your nervous system reads shallow breathing as confirmation that something threatens, so it maintains the alert state that produces shallow breathing. Loop perpetuates itself. Breaking this requires deliberate intervention. 10 minutes daily of intentional full breathing. Inhale fills the belly first, then expands the ribs, then reaches the upper chest. Exhale is at least as long as the inhale, preferably longer. No forcing. Just full, natural breaths that use your whole capacity. The Kemetic initiates understood breath as the carrier of life force. The Ka, vital energy, enters and exits with each breath. Restricted breathing meant restricted life force. Expanded breathing meant expanded life force. Simple relationship with profound consequences. After 2 weeks of consistent work, notice what changes. Your baseline energy level, your capacity to stay present when things get intense, the way thoughts move through your mind. Breath shapes all of these. Intermediate method, clearing specific blockages. Once the gross level restrictions start loosening through movement and breath, you can work with more precision. This means identifying where specific blockages are held and applying attention directly. To locate blockages, sit quietly. Allow your attention to move through your body slowly, from head to feet. Notice where attention doesn't want to go, where it slides past or jumps over. Notice where you find density, pressure, discomfort, numbness. These are the locations of held restriction. Common storage places: throat, chest, solar area 3 finger widths above the navel, belly, pelvis. But yours might be different. Your specific history created your specific pattern. The scan reveals your actual configuration rather than a theoretical one. Once you've identified a blockage, the clearing process follows a specific sequence. First, bring full attention to the area. Don't try to change anything yet. Just be present with what's there. This is harder than it sounds because attention tends to bounce away from places that hold discomfort. The method is staying. Second, breathe into the area. This is somewhat metaphorical. You're directing presence with the breath. as if the inhale fills that specific location and the exhale releases from there. Five to 10 breaths minimum. Third, ask the blockage what it's holding. This sounds strange if you haven't done this kind of work before. You're opening to whatever might arise. Image, sensation, memory, emotion, nothing at all. The asking creates receptivity. What comes through that receptivity varies. Fourth, allow whatever arises to complete. If grief comes, allow it to move. If anger surfaces, feel it fully. These stored experiences got stuck precisely because they weren't allowed to complete. Your attention now creates the space for completion that wasn't available when the experience originally happened. Fifth, when the movement settles, notice what remains. Often the density is reduced. Sometimes it dissolves completely in one session. Sometimes it requires returning multiple times as the material releases in layers. Either way, you've made progress. The system is less restricted than before. Sivavakiyar, the Tamil Siddha whose fierce poetry cut through religious pretense, taught that the divine doesn't enter a congested vessel. A full cup can't receive more. The clearing methods empty the cup. Then what was always trying to flow, flows. A critical distinction the traditions emphasized. Clearing blockages and suppressing them are two different operations. Suppression pushes the content down, drives it into the shadows, creates additional layers of restriction on top of what was already there. Clearing means allowing fully, letting the stuck experience complete its movement, feeling what was avoided being felt. This requires a certain quality of attention, present without agenda, open without preference, willing to meet whatever shows up. The Kagyu lineage masters called this quality ordinary mind, the natural state of being aware before you add anything to it. This presence is itself the healing force. What tightened in the absence of being seen relaxes in its presence. Matripa, a key holder of this lineage, received direct pointing into this natural state and then transmitted it for centuries through his students. The pointing was simple. What's here when you stop managing, controlling, directing, forcing? That. Rest as that. Allow that to meet whatever arises. The meeting itself is the transformation. Now, the advanced approach. Direct seeing. Everything we've discussed so far prepares for this. The physical opening creates a body that can hold more energy. The breath expansion increases life force flowing through the system. The blockage clearing removes what was restricting the flow. All of that is preparation. Direct seeing is looking at what you actually are. Seeing it with your own eyes, your own attention, your own immediate experience. And in that moment of clear looking, the whole project resolves because you realize there was never actually a problem. Somananda, who wrote the foundational text of the seeing philosophy in Kashmir, made this explicit. You're trying to see what you already are. Seeing takes one moment of clear looking. The difference is everything. Right now, turn attention toward this directly. Right now, this moment, you're experiencing something. Can you feel that? Something in you is experiencing this moment. Hearing these words, sensing the body sitting or lying where it is. That experiencing presence is undeniable. It's what's here. Now, look at that presence directly. The one who's experiencing. Can you find it? You can find thoughts. Thoughts about this exercise. Thoughts about whether you're doing it right. But those are content appearing in the knowing itself. You can find sensations, the feel of the body, the temperature of the room, sounds reaching the ears. But those are also content. They appear to the knowing. They're the known, the knower. Can you find what's looking? Where is it? What shape? What size? Does it have edges you can locate? Does it have a center you can point to? You can't find it because you're looking from it. The eye can see everything except itself. But the seeing is happening. The looking is happening. That's the proof of its existence. You can't make it into an object. But the looking, the experiencing, the knowing is obviously occurring. That which is looking, that's God energy. What's doing the looking? What's doing the experiencing? What's always been present? Through every experience you've ever had, unchanged by any of it. This can be a strange moment because it's so simple. We expect God energy to be dramatic, powerful, overwhelming, and it inexpressed that way. But in its essence, it's just this ordinary being aware, present right now, looking through your eyes, hearing through your ears, being you without effort. Now, a complete sequence that brings all of this together. This is what you can do tonight, and then carry forward. It takes about 20 to 25 minutes when you get familiar with it. Initially might take longer as you learn the movements. Find a place where you won't be interrupted. Standing first. Stand with feet wider than hips. Allow your body to begin moving. Don't plan the movement. Let it arise. Your system knows what it needs to release. Shake. Bend. Twist. Allow sound to come if it wants to come. Allow the breath to move however it moves. You're giving the body permission to unwind. After a few minutes of movement, allow it to naturally settle into stillness. Stand quietly. Feel the aliveness in your body after the movement. The tingling, the warmth, the increased circulation. This is life force moving more freely. Phase 2. Sit comfortably. Spine naturally upright but relaxed. Allow the breath to come fully and naturally. Inhale fills the belly first. Feel the belly expand outward. Then the ribs widen. Then the chest lifts slightly. Full, complete inhale using your whole capacity. Exhale releases slowly. Longer than the inhale. Allow the breath to empty completely. Pause naturally at the bottom before the next inhale arises. Continue for 5 minutes. If your mind wanders, return to the breath. No forcing. Just full, natural breathing. Phase 3. Allow attention to move through your body slowly. From the crown of your head, down through your face, neck, shoulders, arms, chest, belly, pelvis, legs, feet, notice where you find density, restriction, discomfort. Where attention doesn't want to stay, where something is held. Choose one location to work with. Bring your full attention there. Breathe into that area, filling it with the inhale, releasing with the exhale. Silently ask, what are you holding? What wants to complete here? Open. Receive whatever arises or doesn't arise. If emotion surfaces, allow it to move. If memory appears, allow it to be seen. If nothing comes, that's also fine. Your attention itself is loosening the restriction whether or not you perceive specific content. Stay with this area until you feel a shift, reduction in density, softening, opening. Then move to another area if time allows. Or rest in the changed quality. If one area took the full time, Phase 4. Allow the clearing to settle. Sit quietly. Notice that you're experiencing. Turn attention toward the one who's experiencing. Try to find the knower itself. Not thoughts. Not sensations. Not emotions. The one to whom all of these appear. Notice you can't locate it as an object. There's no edge to find, no boundary, no location. Yet the looking is happening. The experiencing is happening. That which experiences is undeniable, even though unfindable. Rest is that. As that which is looking right now. Relax as the seeing rather than the seen. As the knowing rather than the known. This is God energy. What you are when you stop pretending to be less. What was always here, looking through your eyes, living your life, being you more truly than any identity you've constructed. Stay here as long as feels natural. When you're ready, allow your eyes to open gently. Notice that the presence doesn't change when eyes open. It was present with eyes closed, present with eyes open. Present through all states, unchanged by any of them. That's the complete sequence. Physical opening, breath expansion, clearing, direct seeing. 20 to 25 minutes daily changes your relationship to everything else that happens in your life. What people tend to miss, they think the formal session is the point. The formal session is preparation for the rest of your day. The real work is remembering what you saw during the session and allowing that seeing to inform how you move through the world. When something frustrates you, can you feel the frustration while remembering you're the space in which frustration appears? When fear arises, can you meet it as the presence that holds fear rather than the identity that is the fear? When creative energy wants to move through you, can you get out of the way and allow it to flow? This is God energy in action. Ordinary life lived from seeing what you actually are. Each moment becomes an opportunity to either tighten around what's happening or remain open as the space in which happening happens. The Mahasiddhas of the Vajrayana tradition demonstrated this. Saraha was making arrows when he saw it. Luipa was eating fish guts when it became obvious. Kukuripa was caring for stray dogs when the seeing occurred. The activity didn't matter. What mattered was whether presence was awake to itself during the activity. Sukasiddhi, whose name means bliss accomplishment, was 61 years old, considered too old for serious work when the seeing happened all at once. Manibhadra achieved perfection while maintaining ordinary family life, ordinary work, nothing visibly different from any householder. The seeing occurred within the ordinary, through being fully present to what was already happening. This is what I want you to understand. God energy is what's here, being you, right now, as you listen. The methods clear what obscures it. The direct seeing looks through the obscuration entirely. What's seen was never absent. The sun doesn't go anywhere when clouds cover it. It's still there, still shining. Clouds move, sun remains. Your restrictions are the clouds. Your God energy is the sun. Methods move clouds. Direct seeing realizes that the sun never stopped shining. Both matter. Both have their place. The integration piece. How to carry this forward past tonight. Morning, before you check your phone, before you engage with the day, take 5 minutes for the breath expansion. Full breaths, longer exhales, simple presence with breathing. This sets a baseline for your day. You start from openness rather than restriction. Throughout the day, when you notice restriction arising, pause. 1 to 2 deliberate breaths. Feel what's happening in your body. Remember, you're the space in which this is happening. This takes seconds but changes the trajectory of whatever was about to unfold reactively. Evening, the full sequence, 20 to 25 minutes. Physical opening, breath expansion, clearing, direct seeing. This processes whatever accumulated during the day and reestablishes the seeing before sleep. The traditions often emphasized 40 days as a threshold. Something about that duration, just over a month, seems to establish patterns that become self-sustaining. After 40 days of consistent work, you're maintaining something that's become natural. The methods support seeing, and seeing makes the methods feel essential rather than effortful. One thing to close with: what you're looking for is what's looking. That's the secret the traditions preserved across millennia, across cultures, across every variation of teaching method. The seeker is what's sought. The one who wants God energy is God energy, temporarily pretending to be limited so it can have the experience of seeking itself. This sounds like philosophy until you see it directly. Then it becomes the thing obvious. How could it be otherwise? Where else would you be looking from except what you actually are? What else would be powering the search except the power you're searching for? The methods prepare you for this seeing. They clear the accumulated interference so the obvious can become obvious. They're sacred because they create conditions for the seeing. They're also ultimately unnecessary because what you see was never dependent on any technique, never absent, never far, never limited by whether you did the methods correctly. Both are true. The work matters enormously, and what's seen through the work never needed the work to be what it is. Hold both. Work seriously. Take the clearing seriously, and hold it all lightly, knowing the destination has been your location all along. If this transmission served you tonight, subscribe. We do this consistently, quality content on these topics, multiple times per week, and share this with someone you think is ready for it, someone who might recognize themselves in what we've covered. You've always been what you're seeking. The seeking can stop. The living from what you are, that continues, opens, becomes the ongoing adventure of God energy expressing through the particular form that's you. That's the full guide. Now use it.